Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This is the call to order of the Instruction Support Service Committee today, September 11th, 2024. It is 5:03 p.m. In attendance, I am Jennifer Perez, Chair of the Committee. Committee member Willie Medina is here. And board members Joseph Sokolovic, Albert Benningham, and Robert Traber are here. All right. So to get started, the first item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes on May 21st. However, we're gonna postpone that item. So do you have a motion to postpone?
Yeah, we'll make a motion to postpone the approval of the minutes for May 21st, 2024 until the next committee meeting.
I second that. So all in favor?
Aye.
And then the next up is gonna be a SPED update, special education update. Ms. McKinley. Sorry about that. You good there?
Okay. Good evening, board members and superintendent. My name is Michelle McKinley and I'm Chief of Special Education. And for the special education update today, first I'd like to begin with a vision statement that my team and I developed during a retreat back in July. And it is the Bridgeport Public Schools Special Education Department's vision is to empower students with diverse learning needs by providing a supportive and inclusive environment. We strive to foster academic, social, and emotional growth through individualized instruction, collaboration with families and communities, and the promotion of self-advocacy. Our commitment is to ensure that every student achieves their fullest potential and is prepared for post-secondary success. The first item that I would like to bring to you is an update on current complaints, mediations, and due process hearings as of July 1st, 2024. There are currently 6 complaints in process, 1 mediation, and 2 due process hearings in process. Our resolution strategies as a department is to focus on open and transparent communication with our campuses, with our parents, and with our community. We want to engage early in any complaint, reaching out to parents and discussing and listening to their complaints and any concerns, and seeing how we can resolve those before it does get to a mediation status. Working with our campuses on documentation, gathering information, and collaborating between campus and the district to, again, ensure that we're following IEPs, we're making sure that we're documenting students' IEP progress, and going back to PPT and IEP reviews whenever there is a concern from parents or even the campus that we can address at the campus level. Providing training and professional development for our administrators and our teachers. And one of the things eventually that we want to move to is also providing professional development and training to our parents. Use of state facilitated mediation, because that is a process that we can engage in without, there may be some cost on the legal side, but before it moves to a full due process hearing, engaging in that state facilitated mediation. And if it is at the due process level, that we participate in pre-hearing resolution sessions. In regards to IEP progress, compliance, as of today, there are 77 annual PPT reviews that are showing due on or before August 12, 2024. There are 37 reevaluations that are showing due on or before August 12, 2024. 56 annual PPT reviews are due for charter schools, and 38 reevaluations are due for charter schools. This does include out-of-district placements and private and parochial students. What we are doing is district supervisors are working with campuses and our case managers and administrators to ensure that we are addressing these as soon as possible. We are also working with our district supervisors into how to address compensatory services as if they are needed as well. Also, one of the situations that has been on the forefront is the implementation of our new RISE kindergarten classrooms that were developed for Cross and Hooker. The current status, we had 3 new classes that were open August 22nd after a facilities and data analysis. Based on parent input and additional analysis, we are moving 2 of the classrooms to Skane. They will continue to function as kindergarten classrooms on a kindergarten schedule. We are working with transportation and facilities to ensure that that is going to be operable. As of today, we do have one long-term sub teacher that's going to be in one of the classrooms with 2 paraprofessionals. We are continuing every day to work on finding that additional teacher for that second classroom, but we already have the 2 paraprofessionals. In the interim, we have provided district level support to those classrooms as well. Our targeted completion date will be September 18th. Continued plan of action is to continue to gather input and feedback from parents. We contacted most of the parents today that were not at Cross yesterday for open house to let them know of the plan, to get feedback, input from them. The majority of the parents were on board for moving the classrooms back to Skane, understanding that they are not operating as a pre-K, but they will be operating as a kindergarten classroom. Continue to meet with current staff that will be impacted by the moves. And again, move and set up the new classrooms at Skane by September 18th. And we also want to roll it out with like a recreation of first day of kinder, because some of our parents, it wasn't the best experience for them, but we want to give them that experience. And to continue to provide implementation at Hooker with instructional supplies for the staff that are already in that classroom. In conclusion, priorities for special education this year, reviewing out-of-district placements, implementing services, and building district programs to be able to provide quality programs in Bridgeport Public Schools. Continue to analyze our district programs to provide services in a program at campuses with a continuum, and also provide services and programs to students that's as close as possible to their home campus. We are going to focus on recruiting, training, and retaining qualified special education teachers, and review and refine our contracted services. With that, thank you for your attention, and do you have any questions?
I know the first question that somebody had is going to ask is if we can have the packet on the portal, like the education you just shared.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you can send that to Danielle, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Can you send that out for us?
Yes.
Can you send that out to our email?
I can send that.
If possible.
I can send it to Danielle. Okay.
Danielle's right here.
And she'll forward it to us if I want to read it, because I have questions, but I can't take notes that quickly.
Okay.
All right. Do we have any questions? You want to wait? I can pass.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
There's just one change. So
I knew you were going to ask. That's why I said it. Who's your favorite? Go ahead.
The classes that we moved from Cross to Skane, kindergarten or pre-K? You seem to say both.
They were kinder. It's 2 classes that are at Cross that are kinder, and they will be moving to Skane. Skane is technically a pre-K K, campus.
Mhm.
It's been operating as a pre-K for years, from my understanding. But we will be able to have space to move them to.
No, just the way you put it, I misunderstood. I want to make
Oh,
sure
I'm
I
sorry.
understood you clearly. You misspoke or I misunderstood, one or the other. I'm not trying to say either way. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure I clearly this time.
Yes.
And so one of those classes has a spell, one does not have a spell. And at its game, they have no specialists, right?
No, they do not, but what we have been given consent to do is to hire, look for a person to come in to provide those special services.
For those two classes.
Yes.
So in the interim, they will have no specialists.
So in the interim, I have an awesome team that we have even said that we will go in and provide those activities of art, music, and recreational for them.
Different question. So did you want to ask about that? Okay. So on a more broad base, how many special ed classes in the city are we looking to fill still? I guess I want to know.
So currently,
So I guess that means nobody's in there or a sub is in there.
So currently we have 26 teacher vacancies with 19 that are covered by Kelly services.
19, you said, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's for SPED, correct?
Yes.
And to kind of clarify that as well, everybody should know that there is a national crisis of lack of special ed teachers in the classroom. We are working with the teacher union to kind of figure out and to develop an MOU to try to do some creative things with those positions and those staff members that are in those classrooms. So it's just, that's a work in progress that we're having to do. But we're monitoring those closely. I have just taken a bigger role in special education over the last couple of days. And so we're going to kind of brainstorm a little bit better and deeper to figure out how we're going to expedite support for special ed students across the district. It's a huge void that we've had a hard time figuring out how to make that happen, but we're going to hopefully be able to have some
I do understand that too. I appreciate the honest answer. Thank you. So it's 19, it's 26 open that are not filled, 19 are being filled by Kelly, with the other 5 are being filled creatively. Because I know at Cross, we are rotating other teachers into a class, and in one case, administrator or something. So we're just sort of covering them in different creative ways.
One of the things that we are going to be considering is looking at anywhere in the district that has a certified special education teacher, making sure we maximize those classrooms with students and support for those students. So that's, right now, our special ed kids go all over the district to try to get support the way the programs are designed. So we're looking at trying to have quadrants, like 4 quadrants within the district, and making sure all quadrants have the same types of programs and services with the same amount of teachers in them. So we're having to reshuffle and relook at the master plan of how to make that better for kids and for staff. We're hopefully going to be able to kind of do a little bit more. That means change, and change is very, very difficult for special ed students and staff and parents. So we're trying to figure out the plan before we roll the plan out. So we're trying to take baby steps instead of just changing and then have to rechange and change again midstream. So it's just a whole lot of thought process that we're going to have to do behind this. And so we're going to take baby steps. We're going to figure out what we need to do, and then we'll move forward with it. But this is a hot topic for us. And so we're trying to revitalize what we're doing and how we're supporting, because these kids can't go without, and we have to do what we have to do to make that work. So that's kind of why I've kind of stepped in to support the team a little bit more, and to be able to figure out a game plan of how to do it. So we will keep this in front of the board moving forward so that you guys have a clear understanding of what's happening to make sure that we're good.
Yeah, so Mr. Traber, one more thing, just the superintendent and Dr. Avery, as well as the rest of the staff. Part of the demographic study is focusing on those areas that we have special ed programs. So one of the things between bilingual, special ed, we wanted to make sure that they put focus on it, that we had those programs in the right areas, that they weren't in a quadrant, we call it a quadrant, but north, south, east, west, you get it. That they weren't in an area oversaturated, that we wanted to make sure that every part of the quadrant was able to support children and the needs inside of those quadrants. And I think with the help of the demographic study that's coming out, they'll be able to map that out a little clearer so we all can get a better view and look at it.
I think that one more thing that bears mentioning for the board is that in addition to having a staffing crisis, there's also a high level of competition for teachers that have special ed certification. And districts around the state have found creative ways to provide significant pay increase solely for special education teachers. And so we did not begin the school year with the number of vacancies that we currently have. We actually had a few people who have taken advantage of those pay increases that we could not match in order to move to different districts. So up to $20,000.
Actually, yesterday, Michelle was saying that there was one that was $30,000.
Yes.
And just to be clear, that's not new for Bridgeport.
No.
The normal difference of pay for Bridgeport is 10 to 15 to go to a nearby blue collar district and 20 to 25 to go to any other district. So
But it's an actual
I know
stipend
this
on
price
top of the
is
salary.
I get that. So I'm just saying that it's in crisis. I sit on some of the other boards, I see it. And they're doing very creative things. I know this. And there are other factors that are exacerbating that problem. So I get it. But we still need to know what the problem is and how we're addressing it because it's our problem no matter what.
Yes, sir.
I agree. Thank you for your honesty and your facts. Thank you.
Can I ask, for you, you explain the RISE program?
So the RISE program is a program for our students that have an eligibility of autism. And right now, it can range as far as needs to students who are nonverbal behavior related to their disability is escalated, to those that pretty much higher on the spectrum and are able to participate in general education or even other special education supported classes. So one of the things that we are doing is looking at the individual students in those programs as well and seeing, because we're pretty much at our max across the district in our RISE classes. But then looking at individual students, because even in speaking to some of the parents in the 2 kindergarten classes, just listening to the students' abilities may be able to gain access to either part-time in a general education setting, which will kind of relieve some of the growth that we've had in our RISE classrooms. So again, it's for students with autism and the level of support that they need from totally self-contained to partially self-contained with access to general ed and special education services may vary.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, could you repeat your name, please?
Michelle McKinley.
Dr. McKinley?
No, sorry, it's not.
McKinley, thank you. Welcome to the district.
Thank you.
You've got a long story history with that special education in our district. And at times, I just want to say this for the record. In the past, we've gotten in trouble with the state, especially around fiscal emergencies, because special ed is one of our biggest cost drivers. So there's a temptation in there sometimes for people to try to cut it. I'm not saying anybody's doing that, but I'm saying this is the path we've been down before with the state. I urge everybody to make sure we don't do that this time around. Yeah, because we got in a lot of trouble with the state prior to my service on the board. But, and stay on top of it, we did these, monthly reports. And that's, nothing soapbox, a couple of questions. We talked about it, said there's 26 vacancies on the order of magnitude. How many total teachers are there in special education?
I don't have that number, but I can get that for you.
Just an approximate. Is it over 200 or 100? Because I'm looking basically at rough.
We'll get it for
Yeah,
you. Unfortunately, we just don't have it.
Okay, no worries.
Dom and I were trying to think off the top of our head, and our head is not serving us well. We don't know off the top of our head, but I'll have it for you by tomorrow.
How about compensatory hours or keeping a whole?
So one of the things, I don't know that for certain because it's like been almost 2 weeks that we've been in. But we are, as we're visiting campuses and working with administrators, we are looking at that, and I can get that information to you. But we also are going to notify parents whose child's classroom does not have a certified teacher of that status, and also the action plan to address those compensatory services once we find teacher or when the annual PPT comes up, whichever one comes first. But we are tracking.
Because that's an important to establish the baseline. As far as, like a regular agenda item, we establish a baseline where we see which way we're going, with resources, and have discussions.
And I think that's, you made a good point there. I think that's going to be a very important piece for us to, as we start recreating a document that will serve the boards as an information item. We can put those things and have a running tally of those so that we can just kind of keep you, twice a week, once a month, whatever it is, so you'll have the data to kind of keep everything on track that you're having your eyes on it as well. So we'll work through that, and I'll help Michelle come up with a document that will be very fluent for you guys to have a good understanding moving forward on those other data sources that you want. So there may be some things that may not be there that if there's an interest, you can get with the committee chair, and we can add whatever moving forward as well. It's important.
And another question, as far as, say, moving a kindergarten class to game, and this is overall for the entire district, I'm looking at these quadrants. How do we ensure that the students are getting the time with their non-disabled peer who as part of the IEP?
You make a great point, because my experience in special education is all about inclusive environments, making sure kids have full access to the general ed, population. And I've been here a year, and the inclusive piece is not fully vetted in this district, where the first option for kids is the regular educational environment. Once kids get in special ed, they stay there, and we haven't done a great job of being able to transition kids out. So that should be the number one thing when you have a PPT, to make sure those kids, if they have the ability to interact in a regular setting, have that ability to do that. So that's something that training will take care of and support and help, and just making sure that we have that environment of, and then educating parents. As a parent of a special needs student myself, I always advocate for that. I want my child to be amongst, general ed classes all the time. And she never was in a resource classroom, but it's just the education piece that we as educators should be able to express to our families, that we want your child to be amongst the regular ed children as well, as much as possible. We know as some kids need the specialized services, and we can get that for them, but for the most part, they need to be with their regular ed peers. And so that is just a process that we'll take a deeper look at that and understand and come up with some action steps that we can do to make that better. It's training. It's having conversations with parents about advocating for your children, and giving them the tools to be able to do that, I think that's important. In different languages so that those families will be able to understand their rights, practically their rights on how to do this business and how to engage the educational setting for their child. That's important. I think that's just something that we got to do a better job of.
Final question, this part is out of order, it's out of with the teachers, as far as special ed parents, how many are we short on certified permanent special ed parents? Okay, thank you. Okay, that's all I have.
And with the parent situation, because it's such a fluid, profession, we're really trying to encourage more of those parents be certified teachers. So, and then taking on out of the Kelly Delta T piece and bringing them into, but we have to set up and find programs in these universities to help support that. And there's funding out there for that. So we're really looking at ways to be able to tap and let them tap into resources and get them certified and become those teachers. And so there's the state, the federal government, they're all, because it's a national crisis. And so what are we doing? There's a lot of dollars that's going to be available to do exactly what you're saying. And we got to tap into that, to be able to kind of do a little bit more of that. So it's important.
Thank you.
We currently have, I believe, but I believe it's 7 or 8 professionals at the program who need to receive their special ed certification. So we've already begun that process. Our goal is to increase the number of participants in the program in the coming year.
And we had a MOU with teachers to go into some programs, some sort of program to get their special ed or something like that, with waivers or something.
Yeah, cross certification.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. We have 5 currently in that fellowship program right now.
That's all I have.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Casimir has joined the meeting virtually. Mr. Medina?
So I just want to put everybody for lack of a better word. I'm going to use this slide over here. See what people, for lack of a better word, I noticed when our board members, and I know some of us have been around in the age, when we ask for something as a board member, for example, I just want to make everything that Joe asked, and you guys said we'll get it to you, that we want it as a board, meaning
Yes.
we would like it to have. I just want to make sure, put it on record, just be as friendly as possible because I got my heart. I apologize for the tears. I got my heart coming out of my chest right now. Because we're failing our little ones. And I don't understand why, knowing that we had these RISE kids coming into, or were in this program and into the schools, and we're hearing from parents, and I got emails, and I'm sorry, I'm not looking at nobody because I want to be respectful. And we got these kids, and somebody mentioned certain schools, and they said that it's illegal for these kids to be under Kelly services and other things, but we're failing to admit our failures and find ways to fix it, and we're making excuses in this room, and I'm sorry. It's just, my heart is coming out of my chest right now because I don't understand how can we sit here and talk about it so lightly when we know better. The people that are in this room know better, and they know what I'm feeling right now. And now you talk about parents advocating. We're here to advocate for the parents. I'm here as the voice, as an elected official, advocating for these parents and for these kids above all. We're the voices. And if you guys can't do the job, let's go out there and hire. There's people out there. I know there's people out there. I know there's people out there waiting for jobs, waiting for this opportunity. And there's big communications and there's people waiting, and you guys are falling short in communication. Once again, falling short on communication and answering. And again, put you guys on notice, if you're blocking the public from emails, shame on you. Because there's going to be receipts and emails put out there that these things have been coming out to you guys as the administrators. And I see a lot of, again, with all due respect to everybody here, see a lot of money in this room, but we don't have money to take care of this problem. And we're talking about $20,000 that is going, people are going to other districts because of $20,000. When we have our kids here and we have money to take care of this, I'm sorry. Shame on you guys. Shame.
Either response from anyone.
That's the actual question to be asked, and I understand it. And somebody just texted me and asked if we could have nameplates at these meetings because there's so many new faces. I just heard Joe ask Miss McKinley her name, and I've seen your face a couple of times now to say hello, but I didn't know it either. So it seems appropriate that we should have nameplates when we come to these meetings because there's a lot of new faces and members of the public apparently are saying the same thing, like, who are these people? So, makes sense.
Yes. Are they gonna have different, gonna be different language for whatever parent would need this information?
Most definitely, yeah.
And second, if parents, all this update for the skin school and Hooper school, there will be information for the, for the parents, so they can know the new update.
Yes.
They can receive, they can know, okay, at least I don't want a parent go to the school and they say, oh, I didn't know this, nobody told me, nobody sent me information, because sometimes it's a lack of communication.
Yes.
I want the parent to know what's going on.
Yes, like we met with some of the parents last night at open house at Cross. I have met individually with parents here in my office, as well as if parents came and I wasn't able to meet with them. Like I've called and spoken to parents, and the team spent time today contacting parents personally. And the last report that I had was that they had spoken to, and our focus is Cross because that's where there's the most critical need. But any parent who's come to me with a concern from the class that was developed at Hooker, I've been working with them as well. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, the parents will receive an update in writing. Again, our goal, and I did submit like a timeline of today through September 16th of everything that we wanted to take place with our final move of any materials from Cross going to Skane happening on the 17th, because we know that what we do have in place, they're still going to need that through the 17th, and that everything be in place and ready to go by September 18th.
Is there your email and your number so any parent that can contact you?
Yes, my email is mckinley@bridgeportedu.net. And my number is 203-278-1040. No, not 10401.
Please, that's something you have it already.
275-1306.
And I agree with what you did because you have to be on top of it, our kids, especially because people, that's why they want to know. They trust us, they want to be sure our kids will be okay. And like you said, exactly, I'm agree with him because I don't have special needs students, a kid, but all the special needs students we have, people, they are active. And I really want to be sure they're okay. Thank you for the information. No more questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we're gonna, thank you. We're gonna move on to a discussion on suspension and expulsion data from last school.
Good afternoon, everyone.
So I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis on 2023 year to the 22-23 to the 23-24 year. I know this was asked for by race, ethnicity, ELLs, fed, male, female, in a breakdown, but I'm going to give you some points and then, ask any questions you desire, and hopefully we can answer those so you have an idea. So as of last year, right now, we're about 61, just so everyone gets an idea, about 61% Hispanic Latino in the district. Another 26.71% Black/Afro-American, and about 7.66 white, which makes up more than 95% of. That's me. So, okay. I'll give you all the.
61% Hispanic.
61% Hispanic Latino. 26.71% Black/Afro-American. And 7.66% white. That makes up 95.37% of the district. So obviously some of the others being 2 or more races, American Indian, or Alaskan Native, Native Hawaiian, or other specific islander in Asian. With that being said, from the 22-23 school year to 23-24, our expulsions went down. So our expulsions went from 33 expulsions down to 21 last year. So that's in minus 12, from the expulsion standpoint. And Dr. Sacchi will intervene in a minute. Let me just give you the numbers and then we can talk about why. For out of school suspension, we were in the 22-23 school year, we were at 2,342. Last year, we were at 1,865. Which is a decrease of 477 students. Now for the in-school suspension, and Dr. Avery is here to speak about that also. We did have a little issue with in-school suspension. We're going to talk about it so you have an understanding. In the 22-23 school year, we had 239 in-school suspensions. In the 23-24 school year, we had 1,567. So we're a plus 1,328 students that are now in school suspension. Dr. Avery, I'll let you take over the in-school suspension.
So for in-school suspension, last year, the state of Connecticut, came down on the district because the district did not have an in-school suspension program across the district. And so, in working with the superintendent, we had to go back and devise a plan for the state to consider how we were, because in-school suspension is required by the state of Connecticut, but the district was not following that, that requirement. So mid-year, probably February, March, we decided to get into compliance for in-school suspension, and we developed an in-school suspension model that got approved by the state and was funded by the district in order to incorporate in-school suspension. That's why you see such a difference from 1 year, 200 and something in-school suspensions, to last year where it was required that every campus in the district has an in-school suspension, and we had to monitor it. So that's the difference in the numbers. So moving forward, this year, we went back to the state to say we're going to continue the plan that we carried on for mid-year last year. This year, fully fledged, started the school year this year, and so that's where we are right now currently with in-school suspension. So look, and I'm gonna give it back to Dr. Sacchi. He's gonna talk a little bit about this. Was a huge thing for districts. So when you look at discipline and academic growth, you have to be able to kind of make sure teachers have the environment to teach, and kids are going to be in that environment and stay in that environment to be able to learn. So we're doing a lot of things different. You guys last month approved student code of conduct, all of those things that we're going to be doing as we start the school year also. I'm very excited about that. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sacchi for some additional subsets.
Yeah, just to add to what Dr. Avery was sharing, I think that it was important, especially last year, so courtesy of the superintendent and Dr. Avery finding the funding to get us back in compliance, because we were out of compliance at that point with the state.
So we were able to devise the in-school suspension plan, and the state sort of asked us some very specific questions as to how the plan was going to roll out. So not only did we have to have sort of like the in-school suspension space, but what was actually going to be happening during the time the children were inside the in-school suspension, right? So with meeting with all of the district building administrators, we came up with each building had to have a very clear plan for what their in-school suspension rooms were supposed to look like. Based on that, and each of those plans had to be submitted and approved. So, for example, ensuring that when a child is in in-school suspension, during the course of that day, there's time that's built in where the classroom teacher is pushing into the in-school suspension room. Ensuring that there's a mental health staff, whether it's a social worker, a guidance counselor, social worker, who's also pushing into the in-school suspension room. So there were separate pieces that we had to just ensure that were in there. Depending on the situation, we're taking to a restorative conference, right, where the student who they had the issue with, they give them an opportunity to connect, to rebuild the relationships so the behavior didn't continue. I think all of those pieces helped in terms of bringing down some of the more aggressive behaviors that would have resulted in an out-of-school suspension, hence more in-school suspensions, and the fact that they actually had a place to now put students in school suspension, I believe that assisted as well. As we're looking into this year, like Avery said, one thing was we had to ensure that the plans that were submitted this year were going to continue going into this year. We actually started off the year doing professional development for all building principals in terms of what are the tier 1 behaviors, right? What are the behaviors that should be dealt like in the classroom, in the hallways, where it's not even an administrative control at that moment. I think by better understanding what the tier 1 infractions are and how those should be addressed, I think we'll even lessen our numbers as we look into this year, right? Because I think there's certain moves that can be done before a child is even referred to an administrator. I think that in itself is going to begin to bring some of our numbers down. And then we have created a social emotional learning framework that is shared with all buildings. So when it fits into the schedule, whether it's high school or whether it's our K-8 schools, there's some social emotional learning lessons that is going to help kind of build the climate, the culture within the building. I think once we're able to get the climate and culture where it needs to be, then in itself would impact everything else in the building, where students can actually get back to engaging and learning. So there are several things that we're working on putting in place that we think will continue to bring our suspension numbers down.
I think I just want to make one more point about facilities. So from a facility standpoint, we also had to go back because some of those rooms were taken over by something else. So we had to make sure that when we went back into school, that they had a room designated for ISS so that we can obviously have children who are on in-school suspension. So I just wanted to point that out. That was one of the other processes that we had to go through.
Yeah, in addition to that, I think one of the things, the law changed this year regarding the number of days, kids can be suspended out of school as an option. And so give me those numbers again.
Yeah, so I think so in terms of the code of conduct, and that was some of the language that we said had to be reflected going into this year. Previously students could be suspended for 10 days. But for any child who is being suspended in school, the maximum is 5 days. For children in grades K through 2, you can only suspend them up to 5 days in or out of school. Everybody else, 3 through 12, you can still do 10 days. But again, the goal is progressive discipline, right? So based on infraction, we don't want to jump from 0 all the way to 10. Like, what are the steps that we can put in place now? What are the supports that we can put in place? Do we have to create safety plans? Do we have to have, again, restorative conflict? Like, what are the things that we can do on the building level when the kids come back to prevent those behaviors from happening again?
Thank you. When you guys talk about space, and I think PJ tried to get ahead of it, so every school already has a designated space that we know of, correct?
Yes, for ISS, yes.
For everything. So you talked about, you said the word push into, and I think you said there was a teacher that now will have to push into that classroom or resource that that has to push into that class? What does that look like?
So yeah, so if the child is in school suspension, the goal is that they have to be doing the work that is actually occurring in the classroom. They just cannot
Continue that process.
into the classroom. So built into that child's schedule while they're in the ISS room, the classroom teacher has to push into the ISS room, work with the kid for a period of time, not for an entire period, but for a period of time to help the child understand the work, and then the teacher heads back to, wherever they have to head to. Included in that, if there's a guidance counselor, I'll say probably the mental health support is probably going to be the piece that's a little bit longer than just a push-in. Actually, like a session with the child, helping them understand why they're there, helping them understand what the choices they can make that are different for the future. So that's what I mean by push-in support, so they can actually push into the ISS room.
So is there an ISS coordinator or staff that's dedicated for ISS in the schools? And I thought I heard that years ago and all that stuff.
Yes, each building, and that's why I said, thank goodness that the superintendent, that they were able to get the funding for the ISS support. So every building has an ISS space and an ISS staff member who's there. I mean, obviously, the hope is that not every day we have an ISS. So when there's an ISS, that staff member can be utilized within the classroom, supporting students, etc.
What does this space look like? You specifically said that we wanted to find out what the classrooms look like in your report. So what is that space supposed to look like? Is there requirements for what that space looks like? You read those words.
Yes. So my expectation when into suspension room is that it's, obviously there has to be seating for the children. There has to be desks, but there should be enough space where there's a sort of like a cool down area within that space, right? So I think even the visuals around the room, like what are the restorative messages that are posted around the room? What are the encouraging messages? And help the children not repeat the behaviors that got them in there to begin with. That's what I would hope to see in every in-school suspension room I work.
Yeah, and Ms. Padilla, it varies, especially for your smaller kids, a little bit different. But the room sizes differ as well based on the building. But every building has a space for in-school suspension. Some may be a large room because they have the available space for it. Some may be a smaller room where they only can get 5 or 6 kids in the room. So they can't have 15 kids in one small room. So it varies, and the time of the day or the amount of time the kid will spend in in-school suspension can vary as well. So one period you may have 2 kids there. By 7th period, you may have 1 or 5 or whatever. So it just depends. But each campus had to submit to Dr. Saki their in-school suspension plan. And what does that look like? How do kids access it? How does teachers access it? And they come up with their own perspective, and we pretty much, agree, say, hey, if you're going to do it this way, you set it up, you built it, run with it. And then when you start looking at the data and the number of kids in school suspension per campus, you can see, one of the things that we're going to be looking at is if I have a high school campus with, an influx of in-school suspension or out-of-school suspensions, I want to go back, what's happening there with administration? What are they doing to address behavior for kids? You can also look at that data and say, is there any academic learning going on with these kids that are not there? Or you look at chronic absenteeism, and it's a huge thing in this district where you got kids not connected to school, and so they misbehave. So there's a lot of things that we're going to have to do a better job of monitoring to make sure that we give the necessary resources to these kids in order for them to stay connected. And the huge thing, kids nowadays, you got to keep them connected, so.
Yeah, Mr. Medina, I agree with that one of our discussion with the state was to make sure instruction is happening and it's continuing inside of ISS doesn't mean you get a pass. You're in the ISS class and I don't have to do any work. You're in the ISS class, you're expected to complete that work that everyone else is doing during the day. That's the expectations of us and the district to finish that work.
And you spoke about the ISS model that you guys had it perform. Can you guys share that with us? Not here, now, I'm just saying share with us as far as what the model.
The plans for campuses? that's, we'll
Say to the board.
we can probably give a sample of like elementary, middle, and high school, and because you'll have 39 different plans, and I would rather for you to kind of
So when you guys talked
understand.
about the state, that's the first part you guys talked about, that the state was wanting to know what is the model and we have.
Well, they took whatever model we were going to use, and they said, as long as you're doing it, and you're agreeing that you're gonna do it, we're gonna take your suggestions, and that's it. So that's what they've done. They've looked at,
That's the one I'm looking for, and me personally, and the board, of course.
well, we gave all of them to them now, so.
Everything more for every school.
We gave all of them to them, because they were like, you guys aren't in compliance, so what are y'all doing? And so we just kind of made sure to, to at least get their eyes on it, to say, here's the plan, here's what principals and campuses have done for Bridgeport Public Schools, to make sure that we stay in compliance. And my job was to make sure that we found the funding to get into compliance. And so that's kind of what we did. But I think giving the board a sample of in-school suspension from elementary to middle to high school, because it's different, but it's pretty similar when you see different grade levels. So we'll at least give you 3 plans of 3 campuses in the district that will be similar to,
That's that elementary.
Yes, sir.
Or
absolutely. And so we will make sure.
Yeah, similar to what, like we were saying, I mean, there were minimum requirements that every building had to follow. Once you met those requirements, everything else that's your bonus. You can add to it.
Because they're watching the data. They're looking at our data, because anytime a kid is in school suspension, that is an administrative, disciplinary action given. So anything that's given has to be put in power school. But what was happening, they were doing it their own way, but they wasn't putting it in power school. So the state was like, whoa, Bridgeport is doing all these wonderful things because no kids are getting in school suspension. So, and that's not the norm, especially when you look at out of school placements, when kids are being suspended, but no kids are in school suspension, there's a problem.
Yeah, that was an issue about 4 or 5 years
Yes,
ago.
sir.
I know because of advocating, and we were concerned as parents in the community that people were being suspended for the out of school for the
10 days.
I'm doing this pen over across the room. I didn't want to throw it. And they were being suspended for, being silly, but for the reason. And there is no thing. So I know the state made laws and guidelines that you cannot suspend. And there was communication problems where parents didn't even know the kids were suspended or in school suspension at all.
So Mr. Medina, I want to answer this just for context. I want to make sure you know. So we have 2 collections a year. It's called the ED 166, and that is the state mandated discipline collections that we have. Those collections happen for March, and then obviously you clean up and go back and finish in June. So within those 2 collections that we have, we're looking at data because we could see trends too. We see schools where you had a lot, and now this year you don't. What's going on over there? What are you doing? What are you not doing? Now the state at this point, because I need to make this clear, just so you have context, came to us and said, you're in violation. They actually called me. And this is before the superintendent was in here, but it was right after she came in here and they said, you're in violation. So when Dr. Avery first came in, those were some of the first meetings that we had with the state coming down and trying to fix the ISS issue that was happening in Bridgeport. Context, they were doing restorative practice or using some of these teachers as more of that type of model rather than having an in-school suspension classroom where they're putting the kids in the classroom. So even though we had some logs, it did not constitute as what the state was looking for as that ISS component. Now that we understand that that's what they're looking for, the numbers for ISS look like I said, they jumped up 1,328 because we're finally doing what the state mandates us to do right now.
But part of the piece that I think is necessary to understand is that implementing ISS at each campus is only the first step. The other piece that we have to do moving forward is now to address the disproportionality of students of color and students in special education that we are suspending every single day in the district. The bulk of the students who are assigned to in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension are either Black, Hispanic, or have a learning disability. So those are pieces that we have to address next in order to continue to educate and continue to address how to build better climate and culture across our schools to ensure that we're not denying an education to students who are already disproportionately at a disadvantage based on the data in the district. So those are very important pieces that we're going to be working on moving forward this school year.
Yes, but at that point, I wanted to, and I'll get the data soon, because this is all ISS, and when you talk about, but she was just mentioning about the Black and African American and Hispanic, well, our district is proportionate to those numbers also. So when you look at that data, I want to make sure you guys understand that I'm going to be looking to say, okay, if we are 80% African American and Hispanic, of course, the ISS is going to reflect what you have. If I got 10 African American kids and Spanish kids and one white kid and they're getting suspended and it's only 2, well, most likely they're going to come from one population, the African American and Black kid population, because that's where you have the demographic in that room, 10 to 1.
Where
So
that becomes a problem is that our African American and Hispanic kids are the most likely to drop out, are the most likely not to pass their classes, are the most likely to be retained, are the most likely to be in foster care, are the most likely to have all of these disadvantages. And so if we say that because they're the majority, they should be the majority of the people suspended in school and out of school, we're not addressing their rights. And so what I would like to make sure that we focus on is ensuring that we are addressing the fact that there needs to be more education around multicultural differences and diversity and how to address the needs of students coming from disproportionately poor backgrounds, where there's less education, to ensure that we're not adding to that with discrimination and denying them an education through out-of-school suspension. When a student is suspended for 10 days, it takes a month and a half for them to catch up on the learning that was missed. And a lot of times when students miss 10 days of education, the catch-up never occurs. And so they continue to fall further behind, and this is shown by data, this is research, until they eventually give up and drop out. And so we want to make sure that we're not losing students that compose the majority of the customers that we serve because of discipline. We want to address why the issues are occurring in the first place so that we can prevent them and ensure that they're being successful in school. And we want to make sure that while they're in ISS and out of school suspension, that they're still receiving tier 1 instruction so that when they get back to class, they can be right there with their age level peers without having to make up 10 days of missed instruction.
And I think that component, the last component you mentioned, I thought that was already being done in the sense that just because you're suspended, you're still responsible for that work and just being communication and all that work. And what I was saying about the data, not to go against what she said, I want to make sure that you understand. I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm just saying that the data has to match things. The numbers are going to be on that side automatically because of what you're dealing with. I'm not saying that I'm going to make an excuse if I know. I'm born and raised Bridgeport, God bless you. And I know the demographic. So I'm not saying that it's okay, because it's not okay. But we know what we're dealing with, and I don't want anybody to shame any of our kids or any culture whatsoever and say this, but it's what we have. And when I mean what we have, this is what we have in our community. So of course, I don't want nobody to say, oh, the numbers are like this because for no reason. No, the numbers are like that sometimes because that's the number of kids that we have, and that number is higher in one ethnic group than in the other. So of course, disciplinary is going to probably show that it's going to be. So if you go right now, for example, what I'm trying to do so as a parallel, go to Fairfield. What do you think their ISS? You think it's going to be more white kids, suburban kids, let's say, or you think it's going to be more African American, Hispanic? No, their ISS and this one is going to be more probably white or Caucasian kids than it will be because their demographic is complete the opposite of what we have. That's all I'm saying. Want to make sure. Susan, am I being affected?
No.
We're
just wondering if you're accurate.
I just wanted to make sure. Hey, that's what I'm trying to say.
They got some points on this one.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Thank you.
Mr. Faber?
I agree with Mr. Medina. And while I understand what the superintendent is trying to say, the fact is that the numbers are the numbers. And that doesn't mean that we are ignoring the points that she's raising. It just means those are the numbers.
I had an African American
Excuse me,
student
ma'am. Excuse me.
suspended
I
for
don't,
10
you don't
days
have
on
the
the
floor, ma'am.
first day
You
of
do not
school.
have the floor, ma'am. You do not
Perfect.
have the floor. You do not have the floor.
Day
That may
one.
be-
Welcome
we may-
back. See you in 10 days.
We may have had bad discipline, but that's bad discipline. That's bad discipline. That's somebody who did not discipline appropriately, whether it was a teacher or an administrator. And that should be dealt with appropriately. I'm not disagreeing with you. But don't start lecturing me about discipline.
I'm not lecturing
Yes,
you.
you were.
You can perceive
Excuse
it that
me?
way, but I'm not lecturing you.
Oh,
I'm just giving you an
Excuse me?
example that despite the
Excuse
fact
me,
that the
ma'am.
majority of the students are African American and Hispanic,
Chair.
it does not mean that
Madam
we should
Chair.
be kicking them out of school.
Madam Chair. The point that Mr. Medina was making was one I wanted to ask, which is this data doesn't help us if we don't know the percentage of students in the school.
Sure.
So I look at Blackham and I look at the number of students because I'm familiar with Blackham, having taught there for 20 years, and know that the majority of the students in Blackham are now Hispanic.
So,
So that gives me an idea of what the numbers are like in Blackham.
Mr. Trainer,
Well, just let me finish, Peter, first. I know you know the numbers off the top of your head like nobody else. I got that. You are a number. But I look at aerospace and wonder, what does that tell me about the numbers of kids in aerospace? How many white kids are there in aerospace versus children of color being an inter-district magnet? And it's just a curiosity question by me because it is an inter-district magnet. I look at Discovery, which has amazing numbers. And so I begin to wonder what percentage, how many Black or African Americans, 16 out of how many total? Then it becomes relevant to the point that we want to look at. It becomes relevant to the point that the superintendent wants to make. It becomes relevant to what we should be looking at. Are we looking at discriminatory disciplining? Are we looking into a potential problem in a given school? How can we look at? And so there, we want to see if there are red flags that are being waved in our district and in a given school. So I would hope that we can start to see these numbers broken down more accurately or minutely, so that we can, in the future, look at that question in a way. So PJ, I'll let you respond to that point.
just that
And
point.
then I have a general response to Mr. Medina.
So just that point. So
Thank you.
I need everyone to understand that the way discipline works in the state is any child that walks in your building, well, the enrollments are going to be inflated a little bit because let's say that your enrollment is 500, but you've had, 537 and 47. When I give that enrollment, I have to show that 537 or 47 because the state doesn't take away a suspension or an expulsion just because a child left the school.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure we can give you that,
Yeah.
but I want you to understand the inflation that you're going to get with it.
It's skewed, slightly skewed number.
Yes.
And you can put that asterisk on the data and we'll know that. But it'll give us a little more refined
No problem.
picture to look at in analyzing this, because I look at it and I go, how significant is this? Are we seeing something that's discriminatory or not? Are we seeing something that is wrong or not? And I don't know.
You can update that.
Because what Willie raises is true, that our district is what percentage African American?
26.7.
Oh, right, you just told us, like 26.7, and 61% Hispanic. So if we see something off of that general number, that actually doesn't do much for us because we know that within the district, schools don't fit that number. like I just said, Blackham is about 50, I think 55%, up around that range. I just asked, Albert about Bassett, because I was curious about Bassett's numbers. But it just, I don't know those. So.
Well, we can help you, we'll give you whatever you need. Yeah.
And I think, one to add to what he just said too, that's our job. We're gonna do a little bit better job of doing exactly what you're wanting to do. We should be doing that. And I'm charging Dr. Sackey's, division to be able to track that data on a monthly basis and putting that data in front of campus principals to, what are you doing differently? Well, they're doing something really innovative over here. Why can't you try that in your building? That's so important to keep it live. And so that's what we're going to be doing starting, right now, to make sure that we keep our eye on things. If it's out of whack, we're going to be able to see it. And historical data is a huge piece for campus principals to be able to use. So next year in September, we know we had an influx in kids skipping for some odd reason. Maybe they're sixth graders and they didn't really get, acclimated to a new building or something. So that's important that we keep that in front of us. I know you guys are thinking about that, but we're thinking about that as well. And we should be giving that information as the reports you guys are wanting. That's something that we are going to be able to provide that for you. We got to do a better job of getting that information. You're thinking about it, so we have to make sure that we give it to you. And I will do my best to try to rally, communication, data analysis, so that you don't have to do it. You just look at it and ask us questions of what's happening, what's not happening. So
the other thing I wanted to do, you have something else down?
I was just going to say, on our website, on the data management website, we do have an interactive dashboard that gives you up to date.
Next week.
Next week it'll be up again. That you'll be able to get access to what you're looking for. Demographic data, school enrollment, male, female.
But I'm just saying, when I get data like this, to say that it says 29 in-school suspensions out of what?
Right.
That's really what gives me an idea of, is this disproportionate? To the student body.
And I appreciate the clarity. I think that's important, the clarity that
Then I see,
to be able to do it.
out of proportion. And the other thing was, you all listening to the discussion of in-school suspensions, just to give you a practical term, Blackham had a small classroom, maybe 20 desks could fit in it. We used it for PDs after school. That's what it was, small enough to put a session of PD in there for the third and fourth grade teachers or whatever, but also where we could put kids during the day. And if a kid was in school suspension, then they went down there and the school suspension officer was in there and the teacher was responsible for sending their work with them that they had to do while they were on in-school suspension or whatever the term was back in the day. We had an in-school suspension program up and running. That was 5-6 years ago at the time. So that room was set up. There was a desk for the in-school suspension officer, there was a desk for the students. There was clearly a screen and all that could be set up for PDs. So there was a screen that could be set up for other materials too. And there were bookshelves and, it looked like a classroom. That's, sort of between the elementary and middle school side, so that school students could use it and or we could use it for us. So that's the sort of nature of what the room was. It was not big enough to be a real classroom. In school suspension room and for a PD room.
First, I would like to ask everybody to take a deep breath. These are not easy conversations. Often get racially charged. Been doing this for a while on the equity pieces since I started on the board. A little history for everybody who may not know. Committee called the Males of Color, who examined the data from the get-go. And Rod's right, Willie's right, Lieutenant's right. Rod's wrong, Willie's wrong. Here's why. Okay, when you look at the data, we do have a big proportion of minorities. Those minorities contain a couple separate groups. And yes, the schools do have different percentages of these people. But you can factor all of that out on the last page of the total. And you see 1,507 African Americans have received suspensions and expulsions, and 1,572 Hispanic or Latino. That's almost 50-50. There are twice as many Latinos in the district as African Americans. If this was to follow the demographics, it would be probably less than half Blacks are African Americans. And this is what we found. We started one of the bands of color committee was a white paper developing this thing and all this. And really, it needs to be addressed because I know a lot of teachers happen to like me right now, but they might not like me after they hear what I have to say. Everybody in this room, including teachers, staff, and everybody in the world, they have unconscious biases. Those unconscious biases may manifest themselves in having disproportionate reactions to different populations of people. For instance, especially, it's best illustrated with a male-female. Don't even have to bring race into it. So if a nice petite young lady comes up and slams her hand on the table, nobody's gonna upset. PJ comes over, slams his head on the table and yells real loud. There's gonna be a different visceral reaction. PJ. Now, is it more likely that I'm sorry, use it as an example, that Mr. Carafa is going to attack us than the young petite woman? No, it's an equal chance. It's our reaction to that creates our reaction. It makes us back away from the larger gentleman than the small petite female. And that's something that really needs to be looked at within each and every one of us because it's something that is ingrained, something we can't even help. Really, unless we really examine ourselves and look into ourselves. And that's something that's so very important to get one of the professional developments should be very extensively used is trainings on subconscious biases. Because we all have them, whether we like to admit it or not. And it takes a while. It's because we got defenses. You can see when you start talking about subconscious bias, you'll see some people start closing up. Their body languages will be like, "Oh no, not me. I don't do that." But it takes work, and these numbers show. At least I don't know if they're instances or unique students, but either way, they're equal. But it's
not unique students.
Right. Yeah. If we could get that refined for the next time, that'd be great. So we can take a better, more.
Just for you, whatever you want.
Thank you. Now, I want to look at something. I've actually got a new question that I haven't had over the years. Take a look at, I'm not going to pick on Dunbar, but it's one of the highest ones. And it actually illustrates basically all the points. The disparities and all that, and it's a K-8 school. Now, they got total 188 in-school suspensions. Now, that's a K-8 school. How is it dealt with when you have a first grade student and at the same time as a third grade student and at the same time as a sixth grade student and at the same time as an eighth grade student and they're all in the same room? How is that instruction delivered? We have, because they got the definitely at different learning levels. So we're pushing in different teachers from all those levels, or are we just delivering one lesson to all those children at the same time? How are they receiving that instruction and not falling behind on the second level?
Good question. My thought of that exact same thing is going to be based on the schedule that's created for students. So in the perfect world, the way that I would see this, the first, second, third grade student will get a grade level teacher during a very set amount of time. That's why it's important to have a schedule, right? So part of the minimum requirements was that there'll be a schedule for every child who is in school suspension. The goal would be that, yes, there will be some time that the elementary kids will spend with the teacher, some time that the middle school students will spend with the teacher, and breaking it up that way. I don't think it would be one lesson for all kids. And the other piece is, chances are we'll not be putting a first grade kid and eighth grade kid in the same room to begin with anyway. So I think, I think in that instance, the thought of either staggering the days when the kids are going to be going into the ISS room, as opposed to having a kindergarten, first grade, and with an eighth grader.
Yeah.
Cycle with that.
Because I all of a sudden thought of the Montessori method, and I don't think that would work in that circumstance.
What used to happen traditionally is that when the kid was sent to ISS, they were supposed to go with work from their teacher. And the quality of that work, the relevance of that work, the appropriateness of that work was completely dependent on the teacher. And the sole role of the adult in ISS was to make sure the child stayed quiet and worked, completing whatever that work was, right? We want to move away from that. We want to move into actually delivering tier 1 instruction to students that are in school suspension and also to students that are in out of school suspension based on their needs, based on whether they have a disability, based on their grade, age level appropriate content that they should be studying. And so those are the pieces that we're working to implement throughout the course of this year.
And I want to go back to where I believe you are correct that we do need to look at the reasoning why. I mean, it's not all just subconscious bias. It's also the circumstances. Perhaps certain demographics have certain instances where it's a little more traumatic for them, where they have a little more needs that need to be addressed, and we need to look at it. It's all holistic. It's a real holistic approach that we need to look at it. Where they're coming from, what's causing the suspections, the connectivity with subconscious biases that may or may not exist.
Is the need to truly implement social emotional learning as we're making decisions about consequences for students. Because a student who had a death in the family during the summer is not going to be in the same state of mind as a kid who went to Disney World. And so to have someone suspended on the first day of school for 10 days does not set up the student for success. And those are the pieces that we want to begin to work through with every single school so that we are not only treating students based on what their needs are, but also bringing more fairness and equity to the way that we address certain behaviors. A student who's in foster care is going to have greater social emotional challenges than a student that is in a traditional home where they don't have any issues. So we want to look at those pieces as we begin to work through the process of redesigning what this looks like.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, and this needs a lot. This is such a big piece that it needs, in my opinion, it needs to like have break off into a separate work group before it's back to the committee. Just to, like, just the.
That's exactly what we said we're going to try to do is implement like a fiscal program and track it.
I mean, some of these high-level things that is always on everybody's mind, like special education, like discipline. You know, I think we need to really take a deeper look at the chronic absenteeism. Why are kids not coming to school? It's a huge problem. And so we have to figure out how we do things and what's the cause of things that's happening with our kids and families. We know there's a lot of, family barriers that's troubling are blocking how much academic growth kids are making, but we have to figure out how to knock some of those barriers down.
Absolutely agree. And it's such an astronomical amount of work and astronomical amount of data. So actually both these pieces that we've had, and there's other stuff that you as a committee chair need to get to. I think this is a lot of work for the committee. I mean, it's just like.
Yeah, I think we just need to get
do.
in front of it for you guys, man. And I think that's just something that the superintendent has talked to us about is we got to figure out and game plan this differently. And so we're going to try to do our due diligence of getting some things out in front of you, tweaking them so that you guys have what you need to feel comfortable having conversations with us. And that's what we're going to do. And so she has directed us to be able to get that in front of you. Even when we start talking a little bit about academic data, Jennifer Merchants is going to be able to provide those things for deeper discussion with the board. I mean, if we do it together, we're gonna see great things happening in this district for kids and for staff and for everybody around this table. And so that's what she has instilled in us the last couple of days, that we can't do what we've always done. We got to do it differently. And so we have vowed to step up to the plate and do that and provide the things that is needed for you guys. So we're going to put our best foot forward and try to ask the questions, ask for the things you need, and we'll see what we can do to kind of create those things for you as well.
And that as we like go through the school year, we can look at what items are things that maybe we need monthly updates on versus maybe there's something we can look at periodically or quarterly. And something like that is so big like special education, we might have to do monthly updates and everything else. There's definitely be time for that committee.
We're already in front of that. We're in the process of doing that monthly perspective for you guys of here are the things that we're going to do. We're going to break it down for the year, things that needs to happen certain times of the year, and yes, we're going to have to tweak some of those things a little bit, like special ed maybe every month for the first 6 months until we have a better understanding of where we are with it. Discipline may be the same thing, but we can do those things in a report that goes FYI to the board, so you have it in front of you, so you don't have to search for it and work for it. It's going to be so we're gonna do it a little differently, and so hopefully give us a chance to kind of rally and get things up and ready for you guys. Get it in front of you, all 9 of you, and then you give us, your feedback of what else you need with it. And then we'll go from there. So it's important for us to step out differently with for you guys, to get you what you need, to advocate for the things we need for you to help us to get in order for us to help get it for the kids as well. So it's a teamwork. We're ready to kind of engage in that process with you guys as well.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Yes, I'm gonna go back and please, every time around, when they suspend for 10 days, students will have the homework, assignment, whatever they need to for education, right?
Yes, you're supposed to have the current work that's been worked on in class.
Then my second thing is, only correct me if I'm wrong. The state said we need to have back,
School suspension.
what was the reason they're removing it, take it out?
I don't really know, but I think my understanding of the rationale that I got when I came into the district a year ago, it was that the district was moving to a restorative practice, district to where they were having these circles and things that were really going, and that was the 5-6 years ago, restorative practice was the thing in education. So they grabbed hold of that, and that's what they were using. Although the state said, no, you always had in-school suspension, you still should be using it, but somehow that decision was made by the district to move away from it and go to restorative. And so the state said, nope, you need to go back to in-school suspension. When we came back in, and that's how we re-implemented the in-school. I mean, I don't know because I wasn't here, but just what people told me about historical perspective on it.
That's one is I believe there were some rooms because I really had experience like 3 years ago when I see it's terrible to have a student there. But I believe now there have to be more of the law, especially the door have to have a glass so people they can see what's going on in the classroom, right?
Every classroom has had.
Yes.
Every single space, that's where I'm planning on doing that, but in every single space, yeah, that will be.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the through the COVID crisis.
Possibility, you're right.
Where I think that's where it disappeared. We were doing the SEL and we were pushing the SEL and they were still there. And then with the shutdown and then re-entry and feeling that's where it disappeared. I didn't come back with after COVID, but we have a feeling that's where it disappeared. Something else you said, the reports. You said at committee, but I would hope they're going to be board reports because we used to get board reports.
I think that's what he meant.
Yeah, and that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think
that's what I meant.
I just wanted to be clear at the board.
Yeah, it'll be.
And, either way is fine with me because we can discuss the committee, but I just wanted to be clear. And I just want to, the superintendent raised the loss of, progress when the child was sent home, and I agree with you. Similarly, one of the problems we had at the start of this school year was by jumping into straightaway lessons, the teachers didn't have that time to learn about those problems, whether a child went to Disney World over the summer, or the child suffered loss in their family at the beginning of the summer. That would normally be what a teacher would be doing at the onset of the school year, is getting to know those students, and we don't know that stuff. And I know for me, those first few days, I'm spending a lot of time trying to learn about those kids that are coming into my classroom and what's happened with them, who they are, where they're from, who their families are, and getting a sense of them. And that was one of the problems the teachers were expressing to us was, we should teach students, not get the sort of things that a teacher would be doing to get to know your students, as well as start teaching. Do these introductory lessons that would normally allow you to get to know your students as well as teach and start to get to know their learning styles. I had lessons where I sort of get to teach, let me learn what type of learners they were, what type of, just get to know them as learners, but to get to know them as people. And so this whole sort of is set back our learning too. So you can see that now we have to start over and so let's all be honest and sort of look at our restarting. We have suffered some consequences, recognize that too, and just move forward knowing that we have to restart that too. And that's had consequences.
All right. Yeah.
I just want to say one thing. So there was one more thing that was on the agenda, and that was.
I don't have one, so I don't know.
Sorry. And so I did speak to Captain Grech. Captain Grech did not have the numbers for me today, but he promised me next week that I would have those numbers, so I will get it to the chair as soon as I get the numbers for arrests. Understand arrests are different.
Yes.
Yes, you understand where I'm going.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and Madam Chair, I did refer Success Village to committee.
For next one.
Oh, I didn't know.
I already had agenda.
Okay, not having an agenda, I didn't know. But I am actually leaving to go to the Mill Hill Planning and Zoning, NRZ meeting now, which I'm a member of, to raise it there. It is, if you don't know, I said it the other night, but I want to be clear. We have about 5 weeks before they start moving tenants out, occupant residents out of their, and there are 900 units at Success. It's my understanding that there are 77 of these right now, which means there are 823 that need to get moved out. PJ, I think has some numbers on that.
I do. Yeah, there are 82 of our children that were affected right now. We pulled that up. 23 happen to be in Edison at this point, 1 at Hall, and the rest were scattered around the rest of the
So even though we won't talk to it till next month, by next month, it'll be a week before those students are not going to be in the area of those schools. And they may be in Stratford, they may be in Bridgeport, some neighborhood in Bridgeport. So it's going to be I talk about affecting their learning. It's going to be a serious traumatic incident.
We'll do some internal, conversations about what we need to do, where these kids are going to go.
Yeah, that's why I said I'm raising an alarm for every committee and everything, because, I don't think people realized how this was going to happen now.
And if we need to call a special meeting for this.
Yeah, I don't know where, that's why I'm sort of shouting it at the mouth.
Yeah, we're already pre-planning on our end to, look, we've been looking.
I know you are, thank you.
All right, thank you. The next item is going to be postponed. So I'm going to move to postpone the discussion on high school graduation rates. We need some more data from the state, so.
I made the motion.
I made the motion.
I'll second that.
And then all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right. The last item on the agenda is we're going to discuss school governance councils. Ms. Richardson, do you want to start that one?
Well, it doesn't matter. I don't know.
Uh,
I don't know specifically what you wanted to know, but the list that the state currently has published on their website was last updated in 2013. And these were category 4 and 5 schools at the time. After learning that you wanted to have a discussion around it today, we did reach out to the state to ask them would they be providing us an updated list, since this list is 11 years old. And the state indicated that in the school governance council's governing documents, there is nothing that requires them to update the list. The list is not, they said, it is not driven by new test scores. So they indicated that they would not be updating the list. So this is the current list of campuses in Bridgeport that are required to have a school governance committee. It is important to note that the school governance committee or council is only an advisory capacity. So they don't have any decision-making authority. Just it's purely advisory. And so I will read it to you, what it says on the paper about School Governance Council's responsibilities per Public Act 10-111-2010. School Governance Councils serve in an advisory capacity and shall assist the school administration in the areas listed below. And then it goes on to list the areas such as school achievement data, fiscal objectives, participating in the hiring process of school principal or other administrators, assist the principal in making programmatic and operational changes, developing and approving a written school parent involvement policy, and working with school administrators in developing and approving a school compact for parents. In addition to its required responsibilities, a council may assist in developing and reviewing the school improvement plan, work with the principal to develop and conduct report and results of surveys that they've done with parents and teachers, and provide advice to the principal on any other major policy matters affecting the school. The duties of the school governing councils do not entail the following activities, including but not limited to managing the school, supervising staff, entering into contracts or purchase agreements, discussing individual issues between teachers and students and or parents, determining student eligibility for school admission, or determining class allocations or student assignments.
I think Mr. Benningham had something he wanted to add.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I know that I've experienced being in the school government council for so many years, and when I was department president about high school and different schools, we used to have like a, especially, it's page 3, school government council, and I'm going with the K's policy service, they can discuss the sample. And that's page 1, 2, 3, section 1, visual meetings, they have parents, teachers, community leaders, principals, student members. Before we have school government council, and this is the way they prepare to have an interview on principal and assistant principals. It's great. That's the best key, that's the best one. But I just suggest you, Madam Chair, that we can review this on bylaws, stuff like that, and check to be sure our schools they have it, and be sure our schools have student government council. That's one of the things that I'm be working with one of the staff too. And I believe that's Ms. Jenny Caron. She will be in charge for working with the school. Sure, our school has school government council.
So Jeanette works with the PACs, and the executive directors are currently surveying their schools to see who has complete school governance councils. All of the schools on the list have some form of a school governance council, but they are not complete councils. It has to be, the composition of the SGC should be consistent with state law. 7 parents or guardians elected by the parents or guardians of students attending the school. 5 teachers at the school elected by teachers of the school. 2 community leaders within the school district elected by the parent or guardian members and teacher members of the council. The school principal or designee named by the principal. And for high schools, 2 student members elected by the school student body. So of course, our current school governance councils, they have the principal and they have the teachers, but not all of them have complete councils because they don't either have their community members or they don't have parents and guardians. But the executive directors who supervise the principals are currently surveying the campuses that are required to have one to see who has complete councils. And if they don't have a complete council, what portion of the council is missing? Because if it is a parent or guardian, then yes, we can partner with Jeanette and the PACs to make sure we can fill that seat.
And Chair,
Yes.
also have to be.
Yeah,
Yes.
Sometimes I know sometimes they got parents from the school, come to the school, they cannot be, have to be second from the school.
That's
It's
correct.
essential to be sure, we have complete, school government council and they, also they really, do the term of 2 years.
Community leaders.
Yes,
Yeah,
that are elected by the parent.
community leader from that neighborhood.
What's it, it says in the district, so I think it could be in the,
It says
Yeah,
2 community leaders within, 2 community school leaders within the school district elected by the parent or guardian members and teacher members of the council. So first you have to put parents and guardians and teachers on the council, and then those individuals vote on who they want to be their community leaders, and they have to have 2.
so this is a list. If there's a school that's not, I'm looking like Claytor's on this list because Longfellow closed. Does Claytor do they have to, or is that have a school governance council, or is just this
The
list?
state required that these schools on the list have the school governance councils. So all schools should have a PAC, but only the schools on the list should have SGCs and a PAC.
Gotcha.
2 separate,
PTSD.
yeah, or PTSD. Thank you, Medina. Thank you.
Can we get that data to us as far as who has and when's the updated data today? Not.
If you give us to the end of the week, we will get the data to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, one of the things I wanted to know is if I couldn't find on our policy in our any bylaws for this school governance
That we don't have.
council, right? So we don't have anything, but I know Bassett High School,
They have a complete.
they have a packet, and I'm wondering, and CAVE also has a recommended sample. So I'm assuming all these schools, it's been, over 10 years for some of these schools, so they should have one, but would it make more sense to have a district-wide one where like everybody's kind of uniform in their bylaws, or is it more individual for school?
So I know that the school governance councils, they talk about what their bylaws are going to be, but one of the things is that you train the councils on what the requirements are from the state.
Yeah, I think there's like a recommended CAVE training.
Chair.
behind it.
I served as a school leadership chair, team chair when they just did the school governance chair in my school. I just want to say that while CAVE's guidelines say that in the district, it is preferable that community leaders come from that neighborhood.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I just want to be clear about that. Our community leaders came from the North End neighborhood around Blackstone. And that was always advantageous, like a church leader, business leader from that neighborhood, serving on the council.
Thank you. Also, believe you can contact very well if you know the highlights, especially SGC, Dolores Manson. Manson, yeah, she know a lot and she worked for so many years with that. Maybe she can give you more correct about the bylaws.
I have her from them.
Yeah, I came up, I initially got involved with the school governance council. Those were my first places then. As far as the community members, I do agree that it's preferable, and I think the reason the state included the wording just district, that's the hardest portion to recruit. We're always looking for the community members because it's harder to get somebody who's not invested in the school to sit and serve and take one from else for them. And just because those schools on the list may not be required to have a school governance council, but some schools go and have one anyway.
Yes, I believe Central has one, if I remember correctly.
Because right now, I was not even aware until maybe probably a year and change ago that not every school had it. I was already under the assumption, because it's actually written down bylaws and portions where schools got to interview, the school governance council got to interview the principal, principals make a recommendation. I can't recall if we should put on the school governance council or PAC PTSO or whatever, but if it doesn't, maybe it needs to be rectified.
SGC interviews the principal.
Correct. Like if my son's school comes from Fairchild Real Campus, they don't really have a school governance council, so they got this principal. There's nobody to interview and recommend. Possibly a whole guy looking. And I would definitely like to see the school governance councils up and running. I mean, we've got the same problem with the PACs and PTSOs. Some of them are just paper PACs and PTSOs. We don't only want people filling the seats. We want people in there doing the work and doing the job.
But once we have complete student governance councils, we will list who the members are on the campus websites. I'll work with communications to get the list of who that body of members is and their meeting dates posted to the campus websites.
And to be fair, this is not a new problem. Plaguing the district ever since I started paying attention.
Yeah.
We've been shorthanded on school governance councils and PAC PTSOs, and it's been a constant struggle. Gained a lot of ground before COVID. COVID hit, backtrack, and then change of administration. This is kind of basic. I'd like to see us start focusing on that again and start making some progress.
I agree. It was a little problematic today with we were trying to find bylaws and we had to like really thank you, Danielle, for helping. But we were really searching for somebody's bylaws to see if this is even active in any of the schools. And so I'm sure it's out there. We just need to find out where. And if we, once we get that list together, the schools who have it, and we can, make sure the bylaws are updated. And if it makes sense to have a district-wide bylaw, like for all the schools, to make it easier. Because this is where, like, we really want to get this is where we get the collaboration with the parents and teachers, administrators, and, the school climate issues, improvement plans, things like that. Parents will have a direct say in that. And, that's where we see that collaborative effort. Any final questions? Thank you to all the staff who presented for us. And with that, I move to adjourn. For a second.
Second.
All right. All in favor? Aye. All right, the time is 6:46.
I